This is Commander Shepard. You're listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net, and this is my favorite podcast on the Citadel.
And welcome aboard to the Phoenix site for Stargate SG-1. Well, technically, no, this is Stargate TWIG. This is the Tactical Weapons Integration Group of the Stargate program. I am your Geekmaster for, well, we'll see how long these guys survive, from ThisWeekInGeek.net, otherwise known as Mike the Birdman. But I'm not alone as I wander across the Milky Way galaxy with the forces of the Tauri, the Tok'ra, the Unas, and many other races that have allied against the System Lord, the Replicators, and who knows what else is out there. But I'm joined with, from the guy from Kitchener,
Alex, and I will be playing Dr. Bob, the Unas doctor.
That's right. And coming all the way from the land of New Jersey,
it's Ken Lutz from This Anime Podcast, and I am playing Saul, the Carnum, which is basically my own created alien. So, big jackal man.
All right, and I'm going to the frozen wastelands of Saskatchewan.
It's JT from Saskatoon. You'll all know me from Twig Sunday Funnies, and I will be playing the token human of this gaggle of fools, Lieutenant Carter Hall of the Canadian military.
And finally, from about 30 feet to my right, we have
Liam, and I'm going to be playing Ringo, the Unas.
Excellent. So, as you may have gathered from our last episode, which is technically episode 1, this is episode 2, where we start getting into the actual playing of the podcast. I think when we last mentioned, it was December 31st, 2003. It was New Year's Eve. You have been at Phoenix Base for about a week or so under the direction of General PK Lawyer, who only really reports to General Hammond at SG-1 on Earth, and of course to the President on Earth as well of the United States. However, because Phoenix Base is a more unique and different Stargate program, this is a multinational team as opposed to SG-1, which is primarily American forces. So for those of you that didn't necessarily listen to the last episode, a very quick summary of the events leading up to here. So this takes place during Stargate's series continuity in the 6th season, about episode 9, when the alliances of all the races have started to fight against the System Lords as one united force. So Apophis is dead, the Hathor is gone, Anubis is the big bad that just is out there somewhere. But there's also other threats, like I said, the Replicators and other strange creatures that may or may not be out there in the black reaches of space. So we begin our adventure at the Phoenix site, which is located on a faraway planet in the distant, one of the spiral arms of the Milky Way galaxy, about as far away from Earth as you can possibly get, not even visible to the most powerful telescopes. But hey, that's a science lesson for a different day. And we arrive. It is December 31st, 2003. It's probably about 10 o'clock at night. People are gathering in the galley and the mess hall, and they're all kind of sitting watching pre-recorded stuff of old New Year's Eves that people have just kind of brought on base because you're not getting a television signal out in the middle of nowhere. and people are watching DVDs. Some people even have old VHSs they've brought with them on base. You're not exactly hurting for entertainment, but more than one person has brought copies of the movie Garden State, and you don't really know why. So, we are going to start things off with our human character, who is the latest person to arrive. They were brought from Earth, escorted by members of SG-1, actually. And we find ourselves with Lieutenant Carter Hall of the Canadian Armed Forces. So, Carter, you have been at the base maybe about a day or so. You have met Major Samantha Carter, I believe is her rank now, Colonel Jack O'Neill. You didn't get a chance to meet Dr. Jackson, and you met Teal'c in passing, who looked you up and down and said, "Indeed," and walked away. So, you are in your barracks room with you and a couple other soldiers. There's probably about 100 people on base at any given time as part of an active team, and that splits up amongst all the SG teams that function out of this base. That number does fluctuate occasionally as team members are occasionally lost or reassigned, or perhaps they go into different areas of the military or report back to Earth. But as I mentioned, you are the last to arrive. So what are you doing here on New Year's Eve 2003?
Carter is just sitting back in his bunk. He's got a pair of reading glasses on. He's reading Chariots of the Gods because that seemed appropriate for the whole situation with the aliens that have influenced Earth's culture. And he thought, it's kind of funny. And he's sitting there reading the book and idly just doing that, rolling a coin between his knuckles. Just like, just reading, flipping the book and just taking it. He's trying to center his mind because he's like, up until now, he thought the most exotic weapon or device he's ever seen in the military is, some of like the, an M. Barrett 50 cal strapped to the top of a Hummer, or some of the cool new grenade launchers he's had the privilege of testing back on Earth. But, he's still thinking about this guy that kind of looks like MacGyver just walked into the room and says, "You come with me," and is told to pack his gear and get ready for a specialized deployment. And he never thought watching Star Trek would actually be research.
Okay, so as you're sitting there thumbing through your book, doing your little coin trick, a young Hispanic woman decides to sit down beside you on the bed. She's dressed in a crisp Stargate type uniform. She's got her tactical vest on. It looks like she's either just coming back from a mission, maybe she's going out. Obviously, you haven't seen her before as you're fairly new, but you look down at her name tag. It reads CPT Rodriguez. So that's Captain Rodriguez. And she goes, "So, fresh meat around here, huh?"
"Yes. Can I help you?"
"I'd just like to meet some of the new faces as, well, you're kind of in my bunk." And she points at a sign on it that says Rodriguez, and it's kind of hard to miss as, well, you kind of just took the first bunk you were directed to.
Oh,
now, it's funny because that was Jack's idea. He just set you down here and left you here.
And as he notices the name tag for the first time, Carter, you just see he kind of has that, not that, he just kind of has that look off into the distance and like, that son of a bitch.
She goes, "Don't worry, he does that all the time."
He's like, he looks at Rodriguez. "I am so sorry, Captain." He gets up. He makes a motion of like smoothing out the lines on the blanket on the bunk, and officer, like a crisp little salute. I honestly did not know that was his intention. I apologize. I will. And he starts gathering up, what, it's not like he dumped everything out of his bag, out of his rucksack, but he just gathers up what he had pulled out. And can you point me in the direction of a free bunk?
She goes, well, you're actually supposed to be meeting a general lawyer. So if you want to head to the mess hall, I'll make sure the right people find you.
He says, thank you very much. And he gives a little bow, takes his glasses off, puts them in like just a little slipcase, tucks it back in his bag, and he heads off to the mess.
She taps you on the shoulder just as you're getting ready to leave. She goes, I hate to ask, but you didn't do anything in my bunk, did you? She kind of smirks at you.
He leans in close, not too close, and says, I would never do that before a proper date. And then
Gross.
He walks away.
She says gross and then goes back to her bed and immediately strips the bed and changes the sheets. Okay, so we switch things going to our pair of Unas who are in the mess hall already. It is a human custom, as you have been made aware, to celebrate a new year that doesn't really exist because this planet's its orbital cycle is nowhere near complete, but you're keeping an Earth standard calendar. So a lot of the soldiers are drinking, they're having themselves a good time, eating all sorts of strange and tasty snacks, including something called Doritos, which sounds suspiciously in your language like a word for poop bag, but they seem to love it. So what are you two currently doing? Let's start with Alex as Dr. Bob.
Okay, Dr. Bob is wearing dollar store magnifying eyeglasses because even though they don't do anything for the Unas eyes, but because Dr. Bob thinks that it will make him look smarter, by the way. And he's also reading a book, and it just happens to say, it says equine surgery. So he's learning about horses and horse anatomy. And so you're saying that sorry, is Lieutenant Carter here, or is it just...
He'll be walking in just a moment. You can actually hear him walking down the hall right now.
Okay, so Dr. Bob is just going, interesting, and turning the pages.
And Ringo, what are you doing as you see Dr. Bob flipping through this veterinary textbook?
Well, probably having a little giggle. Can an Unas giggle? I can't imagine what that would sound like.
I mean, can Klingons giggle?
Yes, but can they blush?
Oh, Jesus.
I would say if I can hear the new guy coming, maybe I can scent him.
Yep.
And he smells a bit like Rodriguez, so I may say offhandedly to Dr. Bob that Jack of the two L's has got another one.
So as you say that, Lieutenant Carter Hall walks into the mess. Everybody just kind of turns and looks at him, kind of gives him that sort of, oh, so you're new here sort of look. And the evening continues, and now we switch scenes a little bit more towards Saul being played by Ken. Ken, you are in your own room, which is actually specially designed for you due to your unique physiology. Mm-hmm. Because you do come from, if I'm not mistaken, a more water-based world, correct?
Correct.
So your room has more different temperature and environmental controls than the other room. So you're a lot more comfortable. It's your own space, and since you have control of your own team, you don't necessarily have to bunk with the others if you don't want to. So you have been given the mission briefing so far, as your team is scheduled to go through the gate at midnight. However, not all of them have been brought up to speed so far. So as it stands, I'm actually just going to read you the prompt that I wrote for you guys the other day. So according to the mission briefing, which is handed to you in the standard, there's like a big kind of clipboard. It says for your eyes only. And it says, General PK Lawyer has been given information recovered by other SG teams that has led you to M5M001. The telemetry, which is the probe that goes through the Stargate beforehand, has detected high levels of radioactive isotopes in what remains of a probably advanced civilization on this particular moon surrounding a gas giant. Stargate Command is interested in any technology that could possibly be salvaged. Resistance is expected to be non-existent as the moon appears long abandoned. You are also given details for your loadout because this is considered to be relatively routine. You'll just be given your base kits, and you will be issued NBC gear, which is nuclear, biological, and chemical. Your suit has been specially designed for you specifically, as your breathing habits are just slightly different than other organics on base. And if you do find anything salvageable, you can send some back on a probe, which can carry more gear. I think those are called Freds, if I'm not mistaken. I know there's another Malp type probe, which is more armored.
I do believe you're correct.
Yeah, and there will be a salvage team that can follow behind you within about 40 minutes or so, because the gates can only stay open for about 30 or so minutes at any given time. So you have your mission. You will also be assigned a observer. You will be assigned Captain Selena Rodriguez. She is a pilot primarily by her trade. And Phoenix Base is in a unique position where it can rapidly deploy vehicles to any world that has established a forward operating base on. And this moon was one such location that has been considered as a forward operating base due to existing infrastructure. However, due to the high levels of radioactive isotopes, we are concerned that it could interfere with certain aircraft sensors. So she's being sent along to assess the situation from a aviator's standpoint. You are familiar with her. You've worked with her before. And you and her get along pretty well. So it's about 10:30, 11 o'clock. You have a briefing with General PK Lawyer at midnight. What are you going to do with your time?
Saul is actually going to finish reading his briefing and just put it down on his desk, and he's gonna go over to the gym.
Okay, so you enter the gym. You see various people there that are training. You see a couple of Jaffa that have rebelled against their various system lords. You know, a few of them were former Serpent Guard, and they have turned against Apophis during his tenure. You see a couple of Tok'ra, who are more or less diplomats, but they like to hang out in the gym and kind of stay in shape as well. You also see a couple of species you're not totally familiar with. They're not too dissimilar from the Nox. You did have a Nox ambassador here a couple of weeks ago, just to kind of give their view of the situation, what they feel Phoenix Base is doing right and wrong. And everyone's just kind of lifting weights. They're doing treadmills. You see a couple of the Jaffa with those giant, basically American Gladiator style sticks with the big kind of foam kind of boppers on the end, kind of going toe to toe with each other. And the place smells like sweat. And to your particular senses, that's kind of gross.
There's some kind of training dummy in there somewhere, right?
Yep. There's a training dummy. There's a wooden one, which is more or less used for martial arts and close quarters combat. Yep. There's the, what I like to call in my personal life, the Brock Lesnar torso, which is more or less to train like how to punch and whatnot. There's a couple of speed bags and punching bags as well.
He's going to walk right up to the wooden dummy and start practicing his martial arts.
Okay. So as you start practicing your martial arts, probably about a half hour goes by and you get a call over the radio. It asks you to, with your team, to report to the mission briefing room, as your team will be prepping to going through the gate within the next couple of hours.
All right. So I'm going to stop what I'm doing, kind of just shake off a little bit of the sweat that I made, and then walk to the mess hall.
All right, so as you head towards the mess hall, most of the other soldiers have kind of left to go take their party elsewhere, with some people are going to go outside and set off fireworks at midnight. The planet is considered uninhabited, save for a few minor species that are definitely not intelligent. They're just animals, more or less. So General PK Lord generally has no problem with people going outside and having a little bit of fun. As you walk into the mess hall, you see two Unas that you know. One is named Dr. Bob because quite literally you can't pronounce his name. One of them is named Oringo, just goes by Ringo. And you see a human that you don't particularly recognize yet.
I am going to walk up behind Carter. I obviously have
you know who he is because he's in your mission files.
Right. So I'm gonna walk up to him and just tap him on the shoulder.
Okay.
And, just I forget, Ken. What does your character physically look like again?
I'm a 6-foot tall jackal man.
Okay. Carter feels that, turns around. Yes, can I? Oh my god.
So you're now face to face what is essentially a werewolf.
Oh, I have made errors in this life. and he's like, he's not cringing, but he is like, just, he can't help but stare, like saucers for eyes stare.
He's gonna lean down into your ear and say, "You better not make them on my watch."
Sir, yes, sir. And he salutes Saul.
So as this is being said, Captain Rodriguez walks into the room. She looks over at Saul and says, "It never gets old, does it? You always freak out the straights the first time around."
And Carter kind of looks at her, and he doesn't say it out loud, but he's thinking, this is karma for what I said earlier. I'm going to have to apologize as soon as I can. And just deflate, like, the tension release, and he just relaxes ever so slightly.
Selena walks over to Dr. Bob, grabs the book out of his hand, turns it upside down and looks at him and goes, "Oh, look at you. You think you're so smart, don't you? Why are you reading about horses, and why do I have such major concerns about this?"
Okay. Wait a second.
She doesn't know what to think.
No,
Why are you reading about horses?
You won't be questioning me when I have to do a horse hysterectomy on you.
She goes,
stands up, all proud of himself, and turns and introduces himself to Carter. "Hello, I am Dr. Bob, Earth Doctor." Sits down and starts reading again.
"Ringo, what are you doing during this exchange?"
He certainly doesn't think this because Ringo told him that horses were secretly people in costumes. And he's also he's a little offended at the fact that the 7 feet tall lizard men didn't freak Carter out, but werewolves. Woo.
Hey, lizard people are real. Werewolves are not.
I would like to think Carter got some sort of access to information in the day that he's been here.
Dr. Bob knows that Carter isn't afraid because Dr. Bob is wearing his friendly doctor's uniform with glasses and reading human Earth books about surgery on human horses.
Yeah. And I should say, when Carter sees Rodriguez go up and like start talking shit to the 7 foot tall lizard man, he's like, "That's hot."
She looks up and down to Dr. Bob. He may have given me a physical once or twice. So as this exchange happens,
oh my!
Hey, she likes them big, tall, and green.
Once you go Unas.
So as this exchange,
once you go Unas, you can never go Pupas again.
Actually, technically, if we're reptiles, we have a cloaca.
So, yeah, well.
Oh boy,
there's probably something I could say about that, but
I was taking a sip of my energy drink, and some of it came out my nose.
Dr. Bob is more upset that nobody laughed at his obvious joke about a horse directomy.
So as
nobody understands his human humor.
So as you are all sitting there getting to kind of know each other, you hear a voice come over the loudspeaker. Would Saul and team SG-26 please come to the briefing room on the main level, please?
That's us, men. Let's get out.
All right, so the group of you all gather your gear, your various pieces of equipment. You haven't been assigned your kits just yet, but whatever you need is with you. So you walk down a series of long hallways, very much Earth structure, very similar to SG-1 on Earth, although a little bit kind of newer because their facility was built in the 90s, whereas your facility was built in the early 2000s. So there are some minor upgrades along the way. Noticeably, you do see the experimental flat screen TVs. So you're walking through the hallway.
But they're still full screen.
Yeah, but they're still full screen. So you come to a rather large kind of meeting room. There's a huge wooden kind of table in it. There's an overhead projector there's a thing coming down from the ceiling. Basically, it looks like any college kind of classroom you might see from around that kind of time. There's like a whiteboard on the side. You see a African woman sitting at the end of one table. She's got a whole table full of notes and everything. She's just kind of scribbling things down and whatnot. She hasn't noticed you come into the room yet. So, who's going to speak first?
Carter's shutting the hell up.
She looks up from her work and goes, Saul, I presume this is your new SG-26 team?
Yes.
She goes, well, I see you have two of the strongest species we've encountered so far. That's a plus. Captain Rodriguez, always a pleasure. Selena kind of rolls her eyes and goes, oh yeah, charmed. And then finally, she looks over at Carter and goes, oh, and you must be the Canadian boy.
Good day.
Good day. She goes, well, my name is Dr. Florence Stone. I am one of the astrophysicists here. I am from South Africa. And my involvement with the Stargate program came very much as an accident. As, we found a recovered spaceship in one of the war zones in my country. And, well, my country tried to keep it under wraps until we met Captain Rodriguez here and other members of SG Command, and I was asked to come aboard. So I've been here just a little bit longer than probably about 2 years, give or take. I'm one of PK Lawyer's closest advisors, and I will be primarily serving as your liaison with the science branch of Stargate Command. General PK Lawyer will be coming in to brief you personally, as some of you are new to the base, and this will be one of Saul's official first missions out into the gate by himself, leading his own command. So, as she says this, a trio of three people walk into the room. Two guards escorting a older, heavier set gentleman comes into the room. See this guy come in. He's got those big, heavy rimmed kind of glasses. He's got a bit of a mustache to him, a little bit of salt and pepper in his hair. And you notice the rank on his uniform, which identifies him as a general. This is General PK Lawyer, the lead of Stargate Phoenix Base. I expect you all to salute or do whatever is custom in your rank structures.
Carter snaps to and salutes the general.
What do the other members of Stargate SG-26 do?
Ringo passes
just
gas quietly.
Saul just nods.
Dr. Bob stands, I guess.
All right.
I don't think that Una's structure like that was ever discussed.
No, but you could totally make it up on the fly because as far as I'm concerned, Una's tribes may vary from tribe to tribe, so your customs may be different. And Ringo's passing gas may be just how it happens. As General Lawyer walks past Ringo, he looks at you and he goes, every time. So he comes to the front of the room. He goes, everyone, be seated, please. You all take your seats. The lights dim down. And he goes, for those of you that do not know, and those of you that do know, you may have heard my name mentioned in briefings before, but I am General PK Lawyer. I am the commander and general lead facilitator here at Phoenix Base at Stargate Command. For some of you, this will be nothing new, as you have worked with your various militaries and organizations using the Stargates to travel across the stars. Some of you, like Saul, have personal ties to the Goa'uld, who have had unfortunate encounters involving missing family members. Some of you seek vengeance. Some of you seek to do better for your people, looking at Dr. Bob in particular, without his particular expertise in medicine. A lot of Stargate members would never have come home again. Ringo, one of our newest members of the team, is an UNAS who has been an invaluable scout and forward operator that we have come to rely on over the last few months. Captain Rodriguez, I'm sure you have all met. She is U.S. Air Force, and she is one of the primary pilots here. We haven't had a chance to deploy many vehicles throughout the gate, mostly due to size, but we have established several forward operating bases, and it's certainly been an experience to facilitate aircraft in different types of atmospheres. But she will be going along with you today because this particular moon we will be investigating could potentially be a forward operating base due to the infrastructure that has been left behind. Lieutenant, and I always say this wrong because you're a Canadian, Lieutenant Carter Hall,
Sir.
we have brought you aboard because, well, your Canadian service record is flawless, and you've managed to pass several tests to which you didn't even know you were being tested. What does that mean? You know when to shut up, who to shut up to, and you typically don't crack under pressure. We need people who know how to shut up. Not a lot of people know about this base outside of a few at Stargate Command. Definitely none of the enemies. However, for those of you that are aware, and you've all read your kind of briefing packages, we are at war with the Goa'uld system lords. Several of them have made several attempts at the SG Command on Earth. None so far have discovered our particular base of operations. Do we fear they're getting close? Yes, that's always a risk we take whenever we dial out. And there's always a chance that the Goa'uld could take technology that might lead them back here. Thankfully, the Iris has protected us so far. But, as always, your job is going to be something a little bit different because we have decided to take a more aggressive stance towards our alien adversaries than perhaps SG-1 does on Earth. We, or more in particular, your group, will be known as SG-26, otherwise known as the Tactical Weapons Integration Group. You will be field testing, but also salvaging advanced pieces of technology, which may help us defend, help advance medicine, and basically would be of general use to the human race, or, as some call us, the Tauri, but they also may help other races in our fight against the system lords and other threats that lurk out there. So, that brings us to our first mission. He presses play on the overhead projector and a small video plays. On the screen in marvelous 480i resolution, the Mount probe enters through the Stargate to the moon of M5M001, enters through the Stargate, telemetry data starts beaming back, and you see a rather open area. It looks like, surprisingly, Vancouver or British Columbia, but it is a snow-covered world. As you come out to the snow-covered world, probe telemetry starts coming back. It starts reading the ambient temperature on the planet. Usually hovers anywhere between minus 15 and minus 50 at its coldest when it's at night. There's also a high level of radioactive isotopes in the atmosphere. Given their state of decay, you would wager there might have been a nuclear war here, probably within the last 50 or so years. Though you don't know precisely when these weapons were deployed, like I said, that's a very, very rough estimate. It appears that most of the damage has been dealt to the southern continents, the area where the Stargate has been mysteriously left relatively untouched. Probe stopped transmitting about 3 hours ago, which is considered unusual as this planet was labeled abandoned. Now, that could just be simple equipment failure due to the high levels of radiation, or the probe could have just failed. That is entirely possible as well. General flips to another screen. He goes, before the probe stopped transmitting, we did send it to do a small sweep of the area. We did find evidence of a brief encounter with a species we've never seen before. Up on the screen, you see a small frame of a creature off in the distance. It's bipedal, definitely wearing some kind of armor and moving unnaturally fast. It looks like...
God. So is it like the Bigfoot, that famous footage?
I would say it moves quicker than it probably should for something of its size. Dr. Stone...
I'm thinking like a polar bear, only it's running about as fast as a cheetah.
It's... As you say that, Dr. Stone goes, no, look at the strides. Specifically, that's probably mechanically aided. If I had to guess, I would guess that's some form of power armor. We don't have that technology.
No. I don't want to fight a bear wearing power armor.
Just when she says power armor, you see Carter just sit up a little bit and he's like, go on.
Now, from what we can tell, we don't think whatever that is saw the Malp. We're pretty sure they didn't. And even if they did, they definitely kept their distance. We don't know if they're hostile. We don't sense any weapons, or at least there's no energy signatures that we're familiar with. Again, the radiation is preventing detailed scans, and the particular gas giant that this moon is coming from does have its own unique type of radiation anyway. So your sensors aren't going to be as useful as we would like them. Even if we could get a drone to fly in the air there, we don't know how much telemetry we would possibly get back. So your mission, SG-26, is to go there, salvage any technology. If you can make diplomatic relations with that particular species, it would certainly be appreciated. But we want whatever technology can be salvaged. Now, because this is a potential candidate for a forward operating base, diplomacy is something we would like to see happen for sure. Perhaps an exchange of technology, or maybe we can find out what they're doing against the Gwald if they ever have encountered them. We don't know, as we don't know a lot of significance behind their particular Stargate site. It looks like the area has mostly been left alone. We can't tell too much more than that without sending actual people through.
Could it be a subterranean society? I know Ringo's origin is subterranean.
Dr. Stone pipes up and goes, that's actually quite likely. If there was some kind of a nuclear exchange, it wouldn't be unusual for the population to have gone underground, perhaps to wait out what I'm guessing what could possibly be a nuclear winter. But I don't know.
Human leader, this one has a question.
Yes.
Can you tell how tall the approximate height of the creature with the outside bones is?
General PK Lawyer says, Dr. Stone, based upon what you've seen, what would you think? She kind of looks through her notes. She looks through a thing, looks up at the screen, does some quick math on like a notepad. She goes, I'm guessing anywhere between 8 to 10 feet tall, if at full height. But we also don't know, does that outside armor add anything to their abilities too? For all we know, that could be a small creature inside of a rather large suit. Or it could be biomechanical. It could even be fully robotic. We're not entirely sure, but I would wager about 8 to 10 feet and definitely weighs a couple of hundred kilograms. Definitely not something you want as a dance partner.
No further questions.
So, Saul, does your team need anything specific before they go through the gate? Like I said, we don't expect this to be anything significant. You will be taking Captain Rodriguez through as she wants to observe the environment to see if we even can deploy vehicles there at some point, and she will partially be acting as a diplomat as well.
Nothing that I personally would need. I'm gonna forward that to my team and see if they need anything for the mission as they see it.
General Lawyer looks around the room. Gentlemen, ladies, do you need anything else?
Carter raises his hand and says, "Sir, I'm assuming aside from the NBC gear, just standard operation kit, nothing too fancy."
Nothing too fancy on this one. We're not quite ready to deploy the experimental weapons yet. However, though, we do have something we do wish to show you. It's just not quite ready yet. And he looks at one of the people and goes, "Airman, if he could bring in the device, please." And as he says that, an airman leaves the room, and after about 30 seconds comes back in with a locked gun case, this big black thing, sets it down on the table, unlocks it, and at first glance, it looks like a standard M41A, which is the M16 assault rifle cut down. However, something is attached to where the grenade launcher would be. Who here would have more familiarity with the Gwald and Jaffa? I'm presuming more Saul than anybody else. Maybe the Unas characters.
Well, Ringo has a background as a freedom fighter.
Okay, so you've seen this thing.
Yeah, the technology is familiar.
You look at what seems to be a reverse-engineered Martok staff weapon that has been attached to the bottom of the assault rifle, like a grenade launcher.
Staff weapon was always clumsy.
General PK Lawyer said, "This is our latest piece of R&D. The boys have only completed a couple of them from recovered staff weapons, more specifically from what your unit has been able to recover, Ringo, off of dead Jaffa soldiers. And it gives you approximately enough ammunition for about 12 shots before it has to recharge for one full day. But this is part of the technology we want you guys to salvage. This will give us an edge against Jaffa, against the system lords, and whatever else is out there. It's a powerful plasma-based weapon. But we've seen some really interesting things out there. The Gwald hand device, who knows what could be done with that? The Gwald healing device, there's only a couple on Earth. We don't have any here. If we could get our hands on a sarcophagus, think about what we could do with that technology to make sure our soldiers don't die in the field, despite all of Dr. Bob's skills. Something like that could really help us. So what you guys are doing is important, not just as soldiers, but as members of the SG program. So I'm hoping when I send you off to this moon, you're able to bring us something back. If not, maybe a friend, at the very least. So with all that in mind, you will depart through the Stargate at 0300 hours. Until then, the time is your own, and be ready to go.
Carter's just kind of looking at this thing. I'm assuming the case hasn't been
Nope.
locked up. Okay, he's looking at it. It's like, that looks like a pulse rifle. He looks at Rodriguez. You ever see Aliens? Doesn't that look like a pulse rifle?
She kind of looks at you, kind of rolls her eyes like, do you have any idea how often that movie gets quoted around here?
Absolutely none. I've been here for a day.
They mostly come at night. Mostly.
Let's just say there's a jar in the mess hall. If you quote aliens, you take a bite out of what's in the mystery box. And that's all I'm going to tell you. She
Ringo
smirks at
liked
that.
the taste.
See, the Unas love it. The humans have learned enough. But I will admit, the one thing was kind of spicy and it wasn't so bad.
And
Saul here.
Saul has no idea what the frick you're talking about.
See, Saul here is the lucky one. He refuses movie nights most times. But he hasn't had a chance.
I'd rather the comfort of the gym.
Yes, he hasn't had a chance to eat from the box yet. But don't worry, you all will. Dr. Bob did the first time, and, well, the smell. So
Saul never got over seeing Old Yeller.
And
the horror.
Yeah, Carter looks at it when he says that. It's almost like this look of like, "Oh, you poor bastard" on his face.
So,
but he's still trying to figure out. It's like, do I want to quote aliens and dip in the jar, or do I just want to save my digestive tract?
So as you all say this, General Lawyer orders the box back to R&D and says, maybe these will be ready for next time, but you guys would get first crack at it. As well, if anything's out there, you guys need to be the best equipped. For now, your standard P90s should do. So, with that in mind, General stands up, he salutes you all, and is escorted out by his 2 airmen guards.
And he looks at Rodriguez and he's like, "Look, I really want to apologize for what I said earlier. That was completely uncalled for. I'm kind of freaking out about this whole situation."
Oh, don't worry. It gets normal. I mean, look at it this way. You're only going to puke through the gate probably the first 30 times. Don't worry about it. It gets so much easier.
Okay, you know I'm Canadian, right? I puke a lot.
She kind of looks at you a little bit funny and goes, by the way, you don't plan on having kids, do you?
Does anybody else's cloaca tickle when they go through?
And Carter just like
Dr. Bobby just starts laughing.
and Carter just kind of like nervously just he's like, "I need to find the bathroom."
So she kind of walks off and goes, look, guys, I'll meet you in the gate room at like 0200. All right. I'll be there. I'll be ready to go. So until then, we'll see you later. So she kind of walks out and you're all there just left in the room. And are you guys just going to kill time until it's time to go through the gate, or what is your plan?
Dr. Bob stands up and walks over to Carter and starts feeling his forehead to see if he has a temperature and doing a basic physical. Not asking permission. Just starts doing this and starts scribbling down notes.
Carter's fighting the urge to struggle back, but he knows if he puts up a fight, he's probably going to get hurt. So he just goes with it.
Normal human temperature. Disappointing. And then that's all it says in his notebook and sits down.
All right. So as you guys all sit there, again, continue to bond. A little bit of time passes. It's about 2:00 in the morning. And you guys are expected at the gate at 0300. You guys arrive at the gate room. They start the pre-gate sequence. So everybody starts going through the kind of launch checks, making sure everything has worked. The coordinates are kind of dialed in, whatnot.
We'll have to doff our NBC gear.
Yep. So Liam, since you actually have actual kind of military experience, can you explain to me or to the audience what is NBC gear and what does it typically look like?
Well, it's kind of like a cross between overalls and a wetsuit. Like oftentimes the material will be kind of heavy and impregnated with charcoal, and you'll have rubber overboots, and you'll have mitts and your gas mask and a hood and everything. And that's so you don't get any like possible radioactive particles in your hair or anything like that. It's kinds of cross-contamination and whatnot.
Okay.
But it's genuinely unpleasant to wear, and I can imagine they'd have to custom make one for an Unas, and it would not. It would be even more uncomfortable for something that size.
I was going to say for us, would it make more sense for us just to have the boots and the overalls? But like we can breathe a lot of other things, Where I don't know, was Ringo a survivor of a host, or
He was a freedom fighter and rose up against his lord.
so you're not so whereas I believe my background was that at one point I was a host, so I may not need a full like breather suit and all that, simply because once like Unas themselves are already pretty resilient, as we saw in the show.
Yeah, I do have the survivalist class ability, which basically means that I'm immune to any damage, natural or non-natural, from the biome. So yeah, I could probably just get away with the suit as well.
Okay, so you two do not need to wear this particular outfit if you don't want to, whereas the other characters definitely should.
Oh, yeah.
So, as you do so, you also dress in cold weather gear underneath it to make sure you're as toasty as possibly can be. And
I mean, I don't necessarily need that because I've got my fur coat.
Could your fur coat survive minus 50, though?
I put on a jacket, but that's
Okay.
about it.
All right.
Actually,
So,
big
probably-
fuzzy jacket. It's basically just a big fuzzy jacket.
I was going to say it would be funny because the Unas, like, we're lizard people. It would make sense that we're wearing like a winter jacket. Like our entire the humans is in a full ABC gear. There's a specialized suit for everybody else, except with the Unas, it's just a winter jacket and a hat, like a toque.
Yeah, probably parka.
Or do you guys have those Captain Cold hoods with like the big fur collar sort of thing?
No, I'd like to pick. Okay, that's what we're issued, but that's not what Dr. Bob is wearing. Dr. Bob is wearing a full-on like Canadian hat with the like flaps at the side.
I love it.
Beautiful. And quick question, Mike. The stats are the same for the P90 or the G36. Is it cool if I just say I go with that? Okay.
Yep, I'm totally fine with it.
All right.
All right, cool. So the gate technician is kind of dialing up. You see everybody kind of get ready as the gate activates. You see people mount those huge guns on either side of the gate as a just in case. And the dialing program starts beginning. You hear the alarm klaxons going off. You hear Chevron 1 locked, Chevron 2 locked, so on and so forth. After a couple of seconds, Chevron 6 locked. There's 7, right? On a gate? 7 or 8?
Yeah, 7.
Yeah, it depends. At this point in time, yes.
Yeah. So the 7th Chevron is locked. You see the huge wormhole. It goes whoosh, and then the gate comes to life in that big blue kind of shimmery pool effect. And Saul, it's your command. So take command.
All right, move out.
All right. So Saul commands you to go up the ramp. You go up the ramp and you enter through the gate. It's kind of like crossing through a pool of incredibly cold water. It's very disorienting at first as you see the Milky Way galaxy fly past you at incredible speeds. It's very, very disorienting. And eventually you come through the other side of the gate. It is immediately so cold that you can see your breath in the air, because the gate sometimes can leave you feeling a little bit cold and wet. That condensation has frozen to you almost immediately. And you see the probe, the MALP, is actually on the other side of the gate. You see it in the middle of a clearing, and it is smoking.
Like from taking a beating, or it's been clawed?
If you want to give me an intelligence check to go take a look at it, you can do that. First roll of the game, boys.
Ooh. Well, hopefully it's just a good one because I don't have any mods for my intelligence. 9.
Well, something did something to it.
Also,
someone got better intelligence.
No.
Captain Rodriguez has a 13, so she'll take.
Yeah, I got
a
10.
crack at it.
I'll roll just to see.
All right.
Yeah, no, I'm worse.
She
I got
has
a 9 there.
She has a proficiency in engineering, so she gets a +3 to her roll. So
Yeah.
she gets +2. Sorry, +1 for her intelligence modifier. So that's 14 +3, 17 if I'm doing the math right. Ken, this sounds about right, correct?
Yeah.
Does anybody have a question? Does anybody have an actual investigation skill enabled?
Nope.
I got a
I don't have
perception.
investigation on.
I've
I-
got
I got a 1 in
binoculars
perception.
that trying to think.
Would that work with perception?
Possibly, because it's what does it say? Negates disadvantage gained from distance that a character might suffer on investigation or perception checks when surveying a target.
Okay.
That
So-
wouldn't really apply here. Not
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
really.
not
because
something,
it's-
you're, not something you're fighting.
So
Well, the binoculars would be used for scouting.
So Selena walks out. She raises her P90. She starts walking out towards the probe, kind of looking left, looking right, and she looks at the probe and she kind of radios to you guys because you're in your hoods. Most of your communication will be over radio. However, there is a lot of static, but you can hear each other as long as you're in close proximity. She goes, well, it was definitely taken out by some kind of energy weapon. She looks a little closer, guys. It might be a Jaffa staff weapon, but I'm not entirely sure. It looks similar. The burn marks are about the same. She looks around and goes, I don't see where the shot could have possibly come from, though. Because she looks around, it's like all you guys see is forest.
This sounds like it might be a good idea to maybe just scout the surrounding area and set up a perimeter, Saul.
Yep. Indeed. So, obviously, Ringo, scout. Bob, me, and Carter set up a perimeter. Let's get going.
Yes, sir.
Rodriguez looks over to you, and what do you want me to do, sir?
Go ahead and since
Slowly walk out towards it.
Since she has enough knowledge to probably help her with the scouting, I would tell her to go assist Ringo.
Okay, so she goes to assist Ringo. So we're going to switch gears over to Ringo. So tell me how you're going to establish the perimeter. So what you see out from the gate, you see a very heavy snow. It's probably about 2 or 3 feet deep.
Mm-hmm.
It's a temperate forest, so I think that would mean like pine trees, birch trees, that sort of thing, or what would be considered the alien equivalent of it. If you want to
Okay.
give me a perception check.
Okay. Now,
That'll be under wisdom.
wisdom. I am a 12 plus 1. So, what do I roll against that?
Just roll your
Just
12.
roll.
Yeah,
Okay.
unless you've got a perception skill, just roll perception.
Well, it comes to, like I said, it's investigation over distance.
Okay, yep, that works.
What is it? Yeah.
Yep, that's fine.
Disadvantage.
So you get a, yep.
Okay, so let's roll this. I'm just using an app.
Yep.
Ooh, I rolled a 7.
All right,
You add your modifier to it.
Modifier, that brings it up to an
+1.
8.
Yeah.
All right, so you look through your binoculars, you see what looks to be miles upon miles of forest. However, off in the distance, your binoculars do see something shiny. off in the distance, like it's reflecting light of some kind, but you can't really tell what. You're not really close enough. There's also quite a bit of snow, which is starting to pick up now. It is starting to snow more and more heavily.
Oh, well, if the weather is turning, shelter would be more important than finding out what the shiny thing is. But certainly noting the direction on my compass or whatever for further investigation would probably be something to consider.
All right, so you mark the location on your map. Everybody give me a perception check right now.
Perception check. Okay, 1 second.
All right.
I'm looking for the highest number.
I got 6.
10.
I got an 11.
I got 11 plus 2, 13.
Woo.
Okay, so Doctor,
Because I have a plus 2 to perception.
It's those magnifying glasses.
Those dollar store magnifying glasses that do nothing.
So Dr. Bob, as you're standing out by the gate, just observing out everybody doing their own thing, you hear crunching in the snow coming from behind you. And as you turn around to see what it is, you are face to face with, well, I guess you'll have to find out next week, folks. As that brings the first, or technically second episode of Stargate SG-1 TWIG to its cliffhanger ending here. So what's going to happen to these guys next week? Well, you're going to have to stay tuned to find out right here on the show. So as always, I've been your gate master, Mike the Birdman. Joining us from Kitchener, we have been
Dr. Bob.
From New Jersey,
Can playing Saul.
From Saskatchewan,
JT from Saskatoon playing Lieutenant Carter Hall.
30 feet the other way.
It's Liam playing
All right.
Ringo.
All right, guys, we will be back next week. So until next time, chevrons locked.
Satesh was represented by an animal that was either fictitious or now extinct, most likely the former rather than the latter, since anthropologists haven't discovered any fossils to point to a species like this ever existing.
Because the creature represents Satesh, the helmets of the Satesh Guard have continued to be the source of many jokes among the Jaffa.
Jaffa jokes? Let's hear one of them.
I shall attempt to translate one on you. A Serpent Guard, a Horus Guard, and a Satesh Guard meet on a neutral planet. It is a tense moment. The Serpent Guard's eyes glow. The Horus Guard's beak glistens. The Satesh Guard's nose drips.